Welcome to this talk about how to write a scientific journal paper. My name is Terje Arven and I'm professor at University of Stavanger, Norway. And I would like to share with you some reflections on how to write a good scientific paper. Of course, this is a huge topic and I'm not going to cover all type of issues, but just some based on my experience after having written quite a number of papers over the last 35 years. Now, if you're going to write a scientific paper, you obviously have to have something that you would like to say that is new, original, something really interesting. And I often use the test, okay, can you come here and stand on the table and sort of say, come here, listen to me. I have something important to share with you. Something new, original, and very interesting. It could be that we have developed a new method, we have a new approach for how to dealing with this and this issue. It is an improved method, it's an improved principle, and so forth. We have analyzed the data, and from these we have derived some interesting result. That will be another example. Or this area is sort of quite chaotic, and we have tried to establish some structure, and we have established some structure in this area, some clarity by using this kind of structure. Or we have an interesting hypothesis, and we have evidence supporting this hypothesis. We have compared different approaches, methods, and we see some differences or similarities that are very interesting, and so forth. These would be some of the way we are trying to sell this paper is our scientific contribution. It's the new, original, interesting thesis or statement, or let's say summarized in one or two sentences. This is the key contribution of the work. So we may ask then, where does this actually come from? Of course, we need to then have a solid knowledge about the topic. You cannot expect to produce these kind of insights, these kind of new ideas, if you don't have a really strong knowledge about the topic. But you also need to have enthusiasm and drive and creativity, of course. And the trigger for this kind of work could be that you have read some articles. You have listened to a speaker at a conference talking about something, and you say that, and from that you got the idea of formulating an hypothesis, developing a new and improved methods. You are making the current sort of thinking method a little better in some way. More elegant method, more general method, and so forth. Or it could be that your work is a part of a bigger sort of project, and your contribution is to sort of add something to that bigger project. Or you may have access to some data, and you would like to analyze the data and see what you can get from that, and so forth. So let's go into the paper writing, the really hard work. And the key point is here really to be crystal clear, what is this contribution, this kind of, I use this metaphor, what is the mountain to climb? It has to be crystal clear. And then second, when that is defined, you have to stay loyal to that contribution, to that mountain to climb. It could be not other mountains to climb next. It should be the one you have identified. So if your text, your paragraph is not adding to anything about what is this mountain, why do you climb it, and what does it give to climb this mountain, and how do you get there, you should not include this kind of paragraph or these kind of statements. This is often a challenge when you do this kind of work, to really be focused fully on what you would like to achieve, a contribution, and then stay focused on that and not talking about anything else. That's a challenge, but that is what characterizes a good paper. Okay, so then we start on writing the title, abstract, and section headings. That is what I sort of prefer. And of course, the title has to be linked to your contribution, as we discussed now. Call it number 1 here. And it should also, of course, get some people to get interested in the sort of the paper based on what they see in that title. Some years ago, I wrote a paper about this metaphor black swan, this kind of extreme event that comes as a surprise, and I suggested the title Confronting Black Swans. Now, one of the reviewers of the papers was not happy about that title and suggested that it should be replaced by Implications of Black Swans to the Foundations and Practice of Risk Assessment and Risk Management. And certainly, I had to agree this was much more informative title than the one I suggested. It says something about what was the contribution, and also got some sort of indication of foundations and the practice. So it was a very good title suggestions. Okay, then we come to writing the abstract. Of course, it has to address the key is sort of the contribution of the paper. You have to motivate your work and place it in a context, and again get people interested in your work. And going back to the paper with the black swans, here is the abstract. I'm not going to go through all the details, but you see the structure. First, I have some text about the topic of the paper and the context, and then what the paper does relative to that, and what is aim, and also the main findings, indicating the main findings of the paper. Of course, if you write this at the early stage of the paper process, it may feel difficult to be able to write the conclusions or indicate the conclusions. But I prefer to write something there because it's sort of, or just sort of, it will be some speculative maybe in some cases, but it drives you in a certain direction, and it means that I at any time have an abstract that is representing the current sort of belief what this paper will be. Later I will change it if I need to do that based on what I'm doing in later sections, but I always have sort of an updated current version of what the paper will be. Okay, so we come to introduction, and we provide the background for the work and current status, challenges, issues, and gaps leading up to your work and your contribution. And you outline that up to a certain level to get the reader interested in what you are actually doing. And of course, you have also references included to place your work in a bigger scientific context. And again, it can be hard to really write all the details indicating what is coming already at this stage, but I prefer to do that to the extent possible, speculating a little what is coming. But I think then I have a text that is current of reflecting my sort of belief of what this paper will actually be. And later I will update it, the text in the introduction, based on what I'm sort of doing in the coming sections. So this is typically sort of structure for coming sections. Of course, there are a lot of variations into this, but if you look into the overall structure here, is sort of that introduction, section 1, section 2 is say something about the current situation. Section 3 is the contribution. And then next, the discussion of what the contribution is relative to what is the current situation. and then some conclusions and the references, and there are some supporting supplementing details. Could be an appendix or some other place. So let's go into writing the full paper. It will be sort of following the same line of thinking as it is for the introduction, but when you have the full draft at a certain point in time, you do the processing and the polishing and checking for consistency throughout the paper. You have said something in the introduction that you will do. Are you actually doing it? You write something in section 4, and is it really in line with what you said in section 1? So this is hard work, and you need many iterations to see that things are really in line. And of course, adding and checking references is also a part of this. Boring sometimes, but really important for a scientific paper. The language, well, it's clearly the case that you cannot actually separate the scientific work, the contribution of the work, and the language. These are really integrated. And of course, it's precision is a key word in any scientific paper. If you have a concept, you need to explain what that means. That is a requirement for a scientific work. It should be logical. And of course, also there's a demand for some sort of flow in the language. And this is often a problem. You have different paragraphs, I see, you're writing one thing there, but they are not integrated. We have some good words that we can use to integrate one paragraph with the others. We could say thus, hence, therefore, in addition. But we have to be careful if these words are also being used in a proper way. If we're saying therefore, it should be logically followed, and that's not always the case. And you need help for being a good writer. And I would say that to become a good scientific paper writer, you need to be trained by a person who is really a top scientific paper writer in your field. This person will scrutinize you, scrutinize every word and sentence of your work and point to what is actually good and what is not good, your lack of precision, flow, logic, etc. Over several years of hard work in this way, you will be better. But somebody have to sort of be over your shoulder and do this kind of work. It's tough, but it is certainly needed. Checking you for precision, flow, logical flow, etc. Okay, so we come to the review. Some colleagues would look into your work, check that for both issues of language, but also the scientific content. You have proofreading, of course. If you're not native English speaker, you should, it's a must to have a native English speaker reading your paper. And of course, sometimes there is requirements from the journal that you should place it in this, you should write it in this way, and you have to adjust for that. Sometimes it may be meaningful to really start the work by defining what the journal you're aiming at. And then you can because you will meet this kind of audience. But I also think it's very interesting and useful in many contexts to actually don't start from that in that way. Rather, let the process be a more creative process, and you don't know at the early stage of your work what this will be. It could end up with a paper like that or like that. You just let the process work, and then it will be either a journal paper, that journal or that journal, depending on what have happened through that creative scientific process. I often do that, and it's quite interesting to see what happens. Sometimes it is not coming out so fantastic things, so it goes maybe for that journal. And if it is something that you really think is great, you will go for that journal. This is exciting, and it's sort of a mixture of science and art. So the paper is ready for being submitted for possible publication in a journal, and good luck. Thanks.